Namaste everyone out there. I hope you guys are doing well. Just wanted to make a quick video, maybe give a little class on the Bhagavad Gita with some yoga wisdom. I'm in Melbourne, Australia right now at the Botanical Gardens near South Beach. It's pretty nice. It is getting a little bit cold here in the Southern Hemisphere. It's starting to turn into winter, and so I'm going to be heading back to the US soon for the warmer weather. I think I'll be stopping in Hawaii for a little while, so I hope to see you guys there if you're in Hawaii, and if you're on the mainland, I hope you consider coming out to Hawaii to visit me sometime. So what I wanted to talk about, or the class today, the Yoga Wisdom class. I don't have my yoga text, my Bhagavad Gita with me, but I do know a verse from the later chapters. But I don't want to come across as someone that's like really complicated or advanced or anything like that. You know, if I were to be giving you guys a calculus class and give you a really complicated equation, you might go, wow, that seems pretty complex, seems pretty hard. But if we start at the beginning with basic math, make sure we have a full grip on that, then we can proceed to algebra, to trigonometry, to all the different things like that. So we'll cover the basics here, and for those of you that already know basic math, this will be a good review for you, so that you can be reminded of the basics, which are always essential and always nice to be reminded of. Okay? So what are the basics, and why is that relevant to you? Well, I'll tell you right now that this information that I'm giving you is really only going to be relevant to a person who has come to this point of asking, why am I suffering? This is the beginning of spiritual realization, this question that one poses or asks to the universe, to sources outside themselves. Why am I suffering? They're wondering why. What's the answer? What's the purpose of this suffering? What is the purpose that I should experience something other than joy and happiness? Why is that? I don't understand. So if a person isn't questioning or isn't curious about that, then no amount of spiritual knowledge, no amount of deeper equations, calculus, trigonometry, is gonna be useful for that person, because this is the fundamental understanding. Why am I suffering? The fundamental question that one asks, you know, what are numbers? What is addition? You know, if one doesn't understand addition, subtraction, there's no point in going beyond that. So if a person is not desirous of knowing why they're suffering, then they're going to remain in the material trance. So there's two types of trance in this world. One can be in a spiritual trance, a trance of peace and happiness and joy, or in a material trance. Material trance is characterized by mukti bhukti. Mukti means salvation. I want freedom from my suffering. Bhukti means sense gratification. I want enjoyment. I want pleasure for myself through my senses, through the body that I have, through the mind. So a person in the material trance, he goes out, he goes to parties, he tries to enjoy himself, he tries to have a good time, he takes intoxicants, he tries to find members of the opposite sex so he can enjoy through his senses, through the physical body. And when he achieves that, and it still doesn't satisfy him, and then he goes through the suffering, which is intricately linked to this enjoyment through the physical material sphere. Then he all of a sudden he turns to a higher power, or to the universe, or to his friends, or to someone, and he wants freedom. He doesn't want to suffer, so maybe he turns to more intoxicants or drugs to drown out the misery. And in this way, when the misery is finally relieved and he feels better for a moment, then he wants to enjoy himself again. And so it goes through this cycle of enjoying and suffering in this world, and it repeats, birth after birth after birth. And in this way he's trapped in a trance, and he never breaks his trance, and he never gets free, because he's not interested to know why he's suffering. He doesn't care. He's not interested. He's not sincere in his heart. He doesn't really care to know. He's unintelligent in a way, covered by ignorance, and really desirous of being the center of the universe. Because if a person really is not envious, really is not wanting to be the center, then that person will automatically be sincere in wanting to understand why they're suffering. So why are we suffering? To understand that, we have to understand who we are. That I am not the body, that the physical body is impermanent and temporary, but I am permanent, I am eternal, I am a living being, temporarily residing within the body. So, the body will change, the body will die, but I will not die, because I'm eternal in spirit, in essence. If I understand this basic principle of who I am, the foundation of all spiritual understanding, the foundation of the answer to the question, why am I suffering? If I understand that I am a living being temporarily in the body, then I can understand why I'm suffering. Because I, being an eternal being, being a spiritual being, I need a source of happiness which is also of the same nature or same source as me. I need a source of happiness which is not temporary, not fleeting, not going away at some point. I need something that is everlasting. I need an everlasting happiness, an everlasting peace, an everlasting source of freedom from suffering. That's what I need. So instead of getting small drops of freedom from suffering and then back in the frying pan, get out for a second, back in the frying pan, I need something that's really a solution, a permanent solution. So where can I find that solution? If I know I'm not the body, I know I'm not made of matter, I understand the fundamental distinction between these two types of energy, spirit and matter, life and matter, then I know that I need a source of spiritual food which is not composed of matter. So I need something that is of the same spiritual nature as me, the living entity. And there's only one thing in this material universe that has the spiritual potency that we have as living entities, and that is known as mantra, or the holy sounds, the holy names of the Supreme Person. So then people go, wait a second, Supreme Person? Who is that? Zoltan? Is this some kind of cult? What is this going on? Who's the Supreme Person? Who are you trying to make the Supreme Leader here? The reality is, if you look everywhere, you look out in the field, you look all around you, you're going to see plants, you're going to see trees. Even if you're in the city, you look in your water, you're going to see germs, microbes, microorganisms everywhere. You've got living beings everywhere you look. Little beings, big beings, small beings, giant beings. There's all kinds of living beings, innumerable, scattered in all directions. Okay? But there is one living being from whom all other living beings emanate from. He is the source or the origin, the original living being. And it's described in Scripture that when this living being expands himself out, he doesn't lose any part of his originality. In other words, he's completely equipped as a whole unit, but he can expand himself out, and each unit which he expands himself out into is still a whole unit. Just like, you know, if I take this leaf here, okay, and I want to break it into 5 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I want to scatter the pieces, the leaf is gone. The leaf has now split into 5 pieces and disappeared. But with spiritual energy, it's not like that. A spiritual person, the original person, can expand himself out into an unlimited amount of beings and still retain his originality. So one can choose, one can say, well, that sounds really nice, you know. How about, you know, Hercules, and how about Zeus and Poseidon, and, you know, how about all these other guys? What about Superman, Batman, you know? And the reality is that when someone is giving you information, you have to ask, what is the authority behind that information? In other words, there's a whole lot of different people in different groups and different people which may give you information about so-called spiritual topics, about God, about different things. But the question which you should really ask yourself is, what is the source of that? In other words, where did they receive that knowledge? And is it documented? Can you trace back where they got that knowledge from, and 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 so on and so forth? How authoritative is it is based upon this scientific tracing process. Now, parampara is called disciplic succession, and it is well documented, it is well traced, it is a way that knowledge is preserved and unchanged and passed down through one spiritual teacher to the next via disciplic succession. And we can see in the yoga tradition that this information, which is stated in yoga text, stated in revealed scripture, stated by all sadhus or saintly individuals, it all corroborates. It's all the same. It's unchanging. This information about the absolute truth about the living entity in his relationship with others, in his relationship with the world, and information about the Supreme Being, and information about what the living entity can do to reach the Supreme Being, to reestablish his relationship with the Supreme Being, which is called yoga or union. So it's the most authorized information out there. Someone else may give you some information, and I'm sorry that this may upset some people, but if that information is not coming from parampara, if that information is coming from someone who has studied theology for XYZ years, maybe he studied theology for 50 years, that means he's been a student for 50 years. No matter how many years a person becomes a student, it never qualifies them to be a teacher unless they have received knowledge from a bona fide source which is connected to the Supreme Source himself in regards to information pertaining to the living entity, pertaining to the Supreme Being. In other words, say it's carpentry, okay? If a person studies from a carpenter for however many enough years to assimilate the knowledge, then they can pass on that knowledge, and the person learning from them can build a house, and that may be fine. But when we're speaking about information descending from the spiritual world, you can't receive knowledge about the spiritual world, about the Supreme Person, from individuals who do not know the Supreme Person, who are not linked up, because this system of parampara was set up by the Supreme, by the original person himself. He set this system up so that the knowledge of him, of how you can reach him, would be preserved and would be available to you. He set it up, okay? So then if other people want to go and say, no, you don't need a guru, you don't need a spiritual master, but then what are they doing? they're actually trying to teach you their way. Their way is, oh, you don't need a teacher. But really, they want you to accept them as your teacher, because you got to accept the teaching that you don't need a teacher, which is a teaching. And the teaching that you don't need a teacher is completely contradicting the teaching that the Supreme Being has sent for you to achieve real happiness. So if something is contradicting that teaching, which is meant for you to achieve happiness, then you must reject that as completely false nonsense, arrogance, and violence upon you. You must reject these teachings of violence that have been spread by nonsense individuals who are not linked up via disciplic succession in parampara, because they are everywhere. They are spreading spirituality as pseudo-spirituality. They are spreading the teaching that all beings are the Supreme Being. In other words, there is no original being, there is no original Supreme Being. By doing so, they're denying the existence of the person who can give you the highest amount of happiness, who can give you satisfaction, who can give you what you need to be free from your suffering. So, why are you suffering? Because you're not linked up with the reservoir of pleasure. So if you're situated in a state of pleasure, you're not suffering, because you're experiencing happiness. In order to experience happiness, you need to be linked up to the source of all happiness. That source is the original being, the Supreme Being. He has the same qualities that we have as individual living beings, but although we possess them to a minute quantity, different qualities we have: beauty, power, fame, wealth, wisdom, detachment. He has these in an unlimited quantity. That's why he's called omniscient, omnipotent, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-wise. Unlimited quantity. So that is the person who you need a relationship with. If he knows you, if you know him, if you guys are best friends, you won't be suffering. So that's what you need. You need to link up via disciplic succession. You need to nourish yourself with spiritual food, which he's giving you in the form of this spiritual sound vibration. Not just any sound vibration, not just any mantra that you find online. The mantra that's passed down through his system that he gave to you. He gave you that parampara system. He says, here is my representatives. Here are the devotees who have completely self-surrendered themselves to their spiritual master. And we know this because the teachings have been unchanged. If a person is not completely self-surrendered to their spiritual master, and they want to change the teachings of parampara, then the mantra and the power loses its potency. So you will know a tree by its fruits. If a mango tree is producing mangoes, then, oh, that's a mango tree. If a mango tree is producing apples, even though the sign says, oh, that's a mango tree, that's not a mango tree. So, similarly, you have millions and millions of yoga teachers and individuals practicing yoga, practicing spirituality, practicing kirtan, practicing mantra meditation, all labeling themselves as mango trees. But you will only know the real mango tree by the fruit. Is the mango there? Am I achieving this freedom from all suffering, freedom from all anxiety, deep contentment, deep satisfaction? That contentment is only available through the bona fide parampara or disciplic succession. And thus, to find that representative, to find that saintly person, is the greatest achievement that you can ever achieve with your human form of life. Because such a person can free you from this material trance, birth after birth after birth after birth, endlessly suffering, enjoying, never looking up, never asking why. Why am I suffering? What's going on? So if you're curious to solve this problem of suffering, then you must understand you are not the body, you are spirit in essence. You must understand you need spiritual food. You need to be linked up with the original person, the source of all spiritual nourishment. And you need to understand the process by which you can link up with him. That process is by hearing and repeating this spiritual sound vibration, which is the only thing in this material world other than you and me and all the other living entities that has any spiritual gravity, spiritual weight, spiritual depth in it. It's the only thing that is permanent in this impermanent world. The only thing that will bring about your satisfaction. So please practice this mantra meditation. Do not take these instructions lightly. This is an extremely serious and extremely important message. And if you think, oh, that's great, that's something that Sky's into, but it's not for me, then you are actually the most unfortunate person in the world, because you will not solve the problem of why you are suffering. You will continue suffering, and your future will be full of pain. And so that's why I'm trying to make this video, because if you can link up with the original person, if you can take this mantra, this sound into your life, you can be happy. You can have no more suffering. It's very easily achievable. It's simply a process of understanding the importance of this gift, understanding how sacred it is, bringing that sacred vibration into your life, making room for it, adjusting your life so that the chanting and hearing of this sacred vibration is the first and foremost activity in your life. By doing this, everything else in your life will fall into place, and you will experience a life which is happier than anything you could ever imagine, anything I could ever describe, and I'm not even joking with you. So please sing with me this mantra. I'll get my ukulele. Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana Mohana. Okay, this is just basic math, a little bit of algebra. Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.